Hello and welcome to class. So guys, we're going to start, or you're going to watch this video. Please make sure you get the handout, the Factoring Quadratic Trinomials notes handout from the sub. And you're going to kind of go through this video, press pause as we go whenever you need to do your work. So start with this warm-up, okay? Start with a warm-up, do these problems, press pause, and then when you resume, you can check your answers. All right, guys, so there's the answers to the warm-up. Check them, and if you have any questions, ask your neighbor, ask the teacher. So here's our agenda. We're going to go over homework. You're going to do some diamond problems, and then you're going to learn why we've been doing these diamond problems. Your homework for next class is on page 528, 2 through 19 all, and you're going to have your Blackbuster and Blackbuster quiz due on Black Day. Don't forget about that. So here's answers to the homework that was due today, okay? So check these answers, pause the video, check these, and if you have any questions, ask your teacher. All right, guys, moving on. Get the note sheet, the Factoring Quadratic Trinomials note sheet from the sub or your teacher, and pause the video, try some of the diamond problems that are on the front side there, okay? All right, guys, so now that you've tried some diamond problems and checked those answers with your teacher, flip over your notes to the second page where it says Factoring Trinomials, and we're going to talk about factoring a quadratic trinomial, all right? So let's talk about, first of all, what factoring is. When you're factoring a number like 15, you're listing what numbers can I multiply together to get 15. So 15 could be 3 times 5. So 3 and 5 are factors of 15. So factoring is kind of like dividing, right? So far we've added polynomials, we've subtracted polynomials, we've multiplied polynomials. Now we're going to do what's called factoring, which is kind of a form of dividing, all right? So what are some factors of 20? Take a minute, write these down. 20 could be 2 and 10. Excuse me, it could be 2 and 10, it could be 1 and 20. It could be 4 and 5. Any of those possible combinations you could write down, all right? Now let's look. So you know that when we have a factor is two things that multiply together to give us the product. So 15 is the product, and 3 and 5 are the factors, right? So now we're going to kind of work backwards. What if I gave you two factors, x plus 3 and x plus 5, right here? And if I were to say, multiply them together, so those two are your factors, x plus 3 and x plus 5 are your factors, what's the product? So pause the video, take a minute, multiply them together. And you'll see that the product is x squared plus 8x plus 15. This is your product, right? So your factors were x plus 3 and x plus 5. Those are the two things you multiply together. The product is this x squared plus 8x plus 15. Well, this x squared plus 8x plus 15, if we were to name that, we would call this a quadratic trinomial because it's 3 terms and the biggest exponent is a 2, right? So when I multiply these two factors together, the product is this quadratic trinomial. So we're going to basically factor today. We're going to kind of work backwards. We're going to give you the quadratic trinomial, and you're going to have to give us the factors. Well, let's look. There's a pattern, all right? If we look at this middle term, this 8x here, right? And then we look at the factors that have the x plus 3, x plus 5. Look at the relationship between 3, 5, and 8. 8 is the sum of 3 and 5. If I were to add 3 plus 5 together, don't I get 8? All right, and now let's look at this 15. What's the relationship with 3, 5, and 15? Hopefully you notice that 15 is the product of 3 and 5. When I multiply 3 and 5 together, I get 15. When I add 3 and 5 together, I get 8, right? This is why we've been doing those diamond problems, to get you in this habit, to develop that skill of multiplying, taking two numbers that multiply to a number and taking those same two numbers to add to another number, right? When we factor a quadratic trinomial in this form, x squared plus bx plus c, right? We're looking for two numbers that have a sum of b. Sum means add to b, and a product of c. In other words, they have to multiply to c. So pause the video, write this down in your notes. Make sure you have this whole thing in your notes, right? This bottom thing is that fill in the blank. When factoring a quadratic trinomial of the form x squared plus bx plus c, we look for the two numbers that have a sum of b and a product of c. All right, so now let's do some examples. We want to factor a quadratic trinomial. So example 1 on your paper, x squared plus 7x plus 12. Again, we saw when we have a quadratic trinomial, in order to factor, we need to find factors of 12. In other words, we want to multiply the 12, and we want to add to 7. So think about your diamond problems. What two numbers multiply to 12 and add to 7? So hopefully you recognize that 3 and 4. 3 and 4. 3 times 4 is 12. 3 plus 4 is 7. And it doesn't matter if I said 3 plus 4 or 4 plus 3. It doesn't matter the order. So therefore, my factors are going to be in the form x plus 3 times x plus 4. All right? So this is my answer. I've now factored. Okay? Now, if I wanted to check this answer, remember that these two things, this x plus 3 and this x plus 4, if these are factors, they should multiply to give me this original thing, x squared plus 7x plus 12. So if I wanted to check to make sure that I got the right answer, I would have to take x plus 3 and x plus 4, and I would have to multiply, right? So I'm going to multiply these together, combine my terms, and you can see that when I check my answer, this is the same thing as this original problem here, right? So because I got the same thing, that means I factored correctly. Now listen, keep in mind, this is not a part of my answer. This thing here that I'm going to circle in blue, this is my answer. When I factor, this is my answer. We're not simplifying, okay? Factoring is kind of like the opposite of simplifying. We're making things more like bigger, okay? All right, let's do another problem. So example 2, m squared plus 6m minus 27. So again, the pattern is I want to multiply to negative 27 and add to 6. So think about two numbers that multiply to negative 27 and add to 6. So hopefully you recognize that those numbers are 9 and negative 3. It has to be positive 9 and negative 3. So my factors are going to be m plus 9 and m minus 3. This is my answer. These are my factors. I could check to make sure this is right by multiplying them back out, right? All right, example 3, p squared minus 3p minus 18. Again, I want to multiply to negative 18 and add to negative 3. So what two numbers multiply to negative 18 and add to negative 3? Negative 6 and positive 3. And it doesn't matter what order I put these in. Look, I could have written p minus 6 and p plus 3. This would have been fine as well, okay? You don't have to have both of these up here. Same thing up here for number 2. If I had written m minus 3 and m plus 9, that would have been fine as well, okay? So there's your example problems, all right? So there's some practice problems down below. Pause the video, take a minute, try these problems, and then I'll give you answers so that you can check, okay? Remember, example number 4, multiply to negative 88, add to negative 3. Pause the video and try these.
All right, guys, take a minute, check your answers to those independent practice problems, okay? Again, keeping in mind, doesn't matter what order I put these factors in. I could have said x plus 8 times x minus 11, okay? But it does matter the signs. I need to make sure my negative, I'm sorry, I need to make sure the 11 is negative and the 8 is positive. Okay, so check those answers. Once you're done checking them, flip over to the back side. Okay, and here's a bunch of practice problems that you can try, all right? When you're done these practice problems, check your answer with the sub. Let them know if you have any questions. Talk to a partner, all right? Keep in mind that your homework is from the book, right? Page 528, numbers 2 through 19 all, okay? Do not worry about the back side of the note sheet where it says using the greatest common factor. We'll come back to that next class, all right? Thanks. Have a good one.